a lot of people think life begins when you're born or conceived or whatever other answers they're coming up with these days. For some people, though, life actually begins the day a doctor tells them that if they don't make some serious changes in their lives, they're going to die. You see, my life began the morning of my 41st birthday in January of 2019. I stood staring in the mirror, looking back on my life after stepping on the scale and finding out I was over 400 pounds for the second time in my life. You know, my dad died when I was 17. So my choice was plain to see in front of me. Either I take charge of my health, make the necessary changes to live, or do nothing and die knowing that my daughter, being only 6 years old, would spend the majority of her life calling some other man daddy. Can't you see? There's no one coming to save me in this moment. It was me who had to become the hero in my story. You know, we live in a world that has a system in place to remove all accountability from every decision we ever make. Taking accountability and fixing the problem is painful. It's like a journey through the pit of hell while feeling the pain of every lost soul that resides there. But in the end, the journey becomes the foundation of your testimony. My fight has become my calling. So if you're out there struggling and you hear the sound of my voice, I'm telling you that your story is not over. As long as you have breath in your lungs, there is still time. But it's your fight, your story, your moment to stand up and do what heroes do. It's a long road ahead, and it sucks. And maybe you're thinking you can't do it. But I'm here to tell you that you have all the tools you need. You always have, and you always will, because you are enough. And most of all, you are worth it. Nobody is more capable than you. Yeah, Friday! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening. Thanks for making me part of your day. This is episode 247 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. And before we get started today, I want to talk to you about my favorite place to be every Saturday morning. And that place is the workshop run by Coach Sophie F. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Man, that place is filled with, look, if you're looking for a good support room, everybody in that room is doing the work. They're all doing the work. And they're all showing up week after week after week. This is all business, no nonsense. That's the kind of workshop this is. And if that's something you're looking for, if you're looking for a good support system, if you're looking for people to be surrounded by that are all successful and all working hard at becoming the greatest versions of themselves, then you want to be at Coach Sophie F's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday morning workshop. Okay, enough about that. Let's get into this! Journey update. So weigh-in was August 23rd, 2025. I stepped on the scale, and I was 208.2 pounds. That's a 1.8 pound loss for the week. Total lost since January 2019 is 187.4 pounds. There is 12.6 pounds remaining to get to my goal. I had to sit for a second and reflect in this moment that I am officially 9 pounds away from having a 1 at the beginning of my weight. And there is not a moment that I can remember in living memory that I can attach a weight in my life starting with the number 1. I'm way beyond this. I have no idea. We're talking about childhood at levels that people just don't understand. You know, I used to say, hey, the last time I was this waist size or whatever, it was 6th grade. And the last time I was this weight, it was this, you know, all these numbers come to mind. But on that day, when I step on the scale and my weight starts with a number 1, there will be nothing to coincide with that date anymore. Nothing. It makes you really reflect on life in a lot of ways. So my work stats go from August 17th, 2025 to August 23rd, 2025. Total steps taken in that time period is 79,175. This is an average steps per day of 11,310 steps per day. Total miles walked in that same time period, 34 miles. This is an average of 4.3 miles per day, give or take. I recently just succeeded in getting to a 72-hour fast. So that was a wonderful thing to experience. I am always going to have fasting as part of my life. I think that I've learned too much about the truth of what hunger is in order to let go of it now. I think there's a lot more to be gained than to stop here now. For the sake of reporting, boring nonsense on this podcast, I probably won't be talking about it much. I believe that there is something spiritual connected to this that I have to go deeper. And, I just think that this has to be kept, something I keep keep close. So successfully got to 72 hours. I'm going to keep it going in any frame, shape, or form, whether it's a 36, whether it's a 48, a 60, or a 72-hour fast. We're going to keep it going, but it is going to change a little bit going forward. But yes, this past week had me reflecting a lot. Actually, the past 2 weeks really had me reflecting a lot. You heard me talk about reflecting in the last podcast, but really there has been a lot of reflection. And, you may have goals on your first day, right? And you may really be able to envision that goal, right? There's real dreamers out there, and I'm one of those people. I could really dream up something in my mind. I could see it vividly. But that doesn't mean that on that day, I actually believed it. I will honestly say, just because I could envision it doesn't mean I believed it. And that part of that was because all of the voices of my past had the power, I guess you can say. That's the only way I could think of it, really. They had the power to influence my thought. And, every single time I failed, every single time I succeed, every single time I attempted, every single time I quit, all of those things present themselves when you're starting over again. In reality, the only thing that's constructive about those things is to learn the lessons and not do them again. And if you're not doing that, then everything you're thinking of is destructive, not constructive. I spent plenty of time beating myself up and all this stuff in my first year. I mean, I am a completely different person today than I was that first year, 2019. Completely different. I can't even, if it was possible to stand me next to that person and you could get to know both personalities, you could clearly see that The only commonality between us is that we're both really loud and obnoxious. But yes, really, we're two different people. Two different people. It's amazing the transformation that takes place. You know, in the beginning stages of the podcast, I used to say this was a transformation of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe that now. What I'm saying is I used to say it then. And the mind and the body, I had that down. I really feel like I did everything necessary to build up the mind and body. I'm not saying I'm done either. Plenty of work still to do. But the spirit, I could never really grasp how to incorporate. But I really believe I had to go through everything I went through over the past 6.5 years. We're talking about, going from processed food to replacing that with whole foods. Then we're talking about looking at the macronutrients of the whole foods and changing that because of medical diagnoses to become more protein-based. And then wanting to live a life without medication, to even go as crazy as to go carnivore for a period of time. I had to go through all of those things. I had to do every single one. There's no way day one version of me would have said, oh yeah, I'm totally going to do that one day. If someone said, hey, do you ever see yourself doing a 72-hour fast? For no reason whatsoever. There's no way that day one version of me would have acknowledged that. They would have called that person asking the question crazy. And yet, I would have even called a person crazy to pick any point in between. Because the day one version of me was under some delusions. But it's all about the heart. It's all about where the heart is in any particular moment. I had to go through all of those things, and then I had to stumble upon fasting. And I didn't even stumble upon fasting for religious aspects. I stumbled upon it for healing aspects. There are plenty of people that practice fasting on a regular basis because of the healing aspects involved. But over the last 17 weeks, I've been fasting. The first 8 for 36 hours. The second 8 for 48 hours. And as we speak right now, I'm in week 2. So the 18th week, I'm in week 2 of a 72-hour fast. And I'm in basically just past the 24-hour mark as we speak. And in this time of exercising what it is to fast, because, there's people that will say that fasting is like a muscle and you got to work it out. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it. And so that I took that as an attitude of, I need to be able to do this, because if the idea is that someday I use this to heal myself, then I need to practice it. And I knew I couldn't do 72 hours on the first day. So I decided what I could do. Because that's how the beginning of every journey should begin, is deciding what you can do, but we waste a bunch of time deciding what we can't do. So I decided what I could do. I started with 36. Went 8 weeks. Moved it to 48. Went 8 weeks. Now, when I was done with that, I could have gone to 60. But that first day, when I got to the 60-hour mark, I felt so good. And I got to tell you about that, because I felt so good that day that I was just like, if fasting felt like this every day, I'd never eat again. Because it literally was like this euphoric feeling. And because of that, I held on to it and I went straight to 72. I didn't stop at 60. In the process of my fasting journey here, I realized that there's a direct correlation with fasting and sleep. Now, one thing that is part of the process of fasting is that at some point in that fast, and really that point is determined by your ability to eat as close to keto as possible, right? So if you don't eat a keto lifestyle, when you start to fast, it will take longer to reach ketosis. And if you do live a keto lifestyle, you're going to enter the fast at ketosis. The difference between the two is the faster you get to ketosis, the faster you get to the healing aspect of the fast. But there's one thing when the switch gets flipped. When you switch to ketosis, there is this insane burst of energy. Incredible burst of energy when this switch gets flipped. And you know, I didn't make the connection until this time, but it had happened so many times that I only just kind of looked back and said, oh my God, this is not the first time this is happening. But when this switch gets flipped and all of a sudden energy through the roof, it is happening to me at the worst possible moments. For instance, the last time it happened to me at 11 p.m. on the Thursday night, a week ago, last Thursday. 11 p.m., I'm getting hit with a surge of energy. And this is where things get interesting. Because I then spend the next few hours fighting to try to go back to sleep, because now it's like it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I should be going to sleep. But the energy that has kicked in, and it has happened at all kinds of different times. And really, again, it's dependent on what you last ate before the fast began. If someone is eating a high carb meal like a bowl of pasta, it's going to take longer to get to ketosis than if someone ate a keto-centric meal, right? So I'm fighting. It's past 1 a.m. I'm approaching 2. I got to be up at 5 a.m. to work. And I'm going out of my mind. But somewhere in between 1 and 2 a.m., I fall asleep. Let's call it 1:30. I sleep for essentially 3.5 hours. When I woke up, you would think that I woke up feeling terrible. You would think. Tired, like a zombie. I mean, how many people will get 3 hours sleep and operate at all? But not only, I woke up 3.5 hours later and I felt like I slept 30 hours, not 3. That's how I felt. I felt I felt so amazingly good. And it made me think, this is showing me something. My fast and my sleep are showing me something. And this is what it means to have a bunch of energy being used to digest food at night. This is why you could wake up and still feel tired, and maybe you even got 6-7 hours sleep. Maybe your body spent so much of its energy during your restoring, you're sleeping and your body's supposed to be restoring during this time. But in reality, all of its effort is into digesting. And then in the one time, because I'm fasting, there's no food to digest. I'm over 24 hours into this. I'm over 36 hours. Essentially, I was at the 48-hour mark, right? Actually, no. I was past the 40-hour mark. When I woke up that morning, let's just pick that time. When I woke up that morning, I was approaching the 60-hour mark. 60 hours. So it had been almost 60 hours since I had my last meal. My body had nothing in it to digest. And that means all of my body's effort went to restoration while I was sleeping. And in spite of the fact that my sleep was only 3.5 hours, the restoration that came with that sleep was astronomical. I don't even know if what I'm saying makes sense. All I could tell you, everything I talk about in this podcast is about my personal experience, and I'm telling you my personal experience. There might be no science to back up what I'm saying whatsoever. I don't care. I know what I felt when I woke up that morning. There's something to this. And there's also something to the connection of fasting and spirituality. And if this is not my gateway to unite the three that I used to talk about at the very beginning of this podcast, when I told you that this was a journey of the mind, the body, and the spirit, if fasting is not the way to bring the spirit into this and unite the three, then I don't know what I'm talking about. And you should stop watching this podcast. Because that's what I see right now. That's what the last 17 weeks of successful fasting has shown me. I could only go by my own experience. It's how I've done everything in my life. Today as we speak, August 27th, 2025, I'm recording this. Today is the 5-year anniversary of this podcast. And typically I do, I have some fun episode, and on other anniversary episodes, I sang songs, had a good time celebrating the podcast. I had asked myself a few days ago, what is one word that would describe the last year of this podcast? Not my journey, the podcast. So August 27th, 2024 to August 27th, 2025. What is one word that would describe this year for the podcast? The only word I could come up with is frustrating. Frustrating. I learned a lot of things since I started this podcast, since I started this journey. I learned a lot of things. There's one lesson I can't even honestly say I learned it. What I can say about it, it's the hardest thing I'm learning. That's what I can say. I haven't learned the lesson yet. It's the hardest lesson I'm learning. No matter what I say, at this microphone. The person receiving the message, their heart has to be in the right place to receive it. Because I can't will anybody to learn what I've learned. They have to be willing to learn it themselves. If they take my advice, they have to stick around long enough to learn the lesson, to see the result, to live the life, to create the consistent effort necessary to do what I do. And there's nothing, literally nothing I can say to force you to see how simplistic this all is. To force you to see how much you are in the way of your own success. To force you to see that the anchors you hold on to are exactly why you can't breathe. They're exactly why you can't move forward. You're exactly why you don't show any progress. Because the anchors you're holding on to are holding you in place. What's the purpose of an anchor? The purpose of an anchor is to make sure a boat doesn't go adrift. It stays stable in a storm. But at the same time, if there is no storm, it doesn't matter how much I push the throttle, the boat's not going to go anywhere with the anchor in the water. So just as much as it's a saving grace, it's a hindrance. I can't make you see that. No matter how much I point at it, I can even tell you what your anchor is in some cases. Some people I know so well, I could say, hey, get it together, man. Take care of this. This is your real problem. It doesn't matter that I said it. Their heart has to be ready. This is the hardest thing. It's the most frustrating thing I encounter sitting here. I told you guys before, I've been recently trying to make reading the Bible a consistent part of my life. And last week, I can't remember which day it was, and I want to say it was either Tuesday or it was Thursday. I happen to, because often, most of the time, I just open the Bible to a random page and I read the beginning of the first chapter I see. And I just continue forward for 20 minutes and I stop when I'm done. This is the agreement I made with myself to, all in an effort to make reading the Bible consistent. So either on Tuesday or Thursday, I came upon the parable of the sower. So there's a sower who's sowing seeds. And when he sows the seeds, some of those seeds, they fall onto a path. And the path, it has been walked on over and over and over again. And because it's been walked on so often, the seeds can't go in. They literally bounce on the ground because the ground is hard. And because they bounce, the birds come and eat the seeds. If the birds don't come in time, somebody walking by is going to step on them. So either or, it's a lose-lose. And as he's throwing, some of them go onto rocky ground. Now, the rocky ground might have some soil for them to get into, but there's not much depth because there's, lots of rocks, right? And what it might start to take root, but it'll never take enough root to survive. The sun will come, the burning sun will come out, and it'll wither and die because the roots can't get low enough to grab water. A storm comes, and it's crazy wind, and the plant just gets uprooted because the roots can't get in deep enough into the rocky ground. And some of the seeds that the sower is throwing go amongst thorns. Now, in these areas where there's thorns, there's plenty of dirt. But the problem is all of the nutrients in the ground, all of the water in the ground is being taken up by those thorns. So the thorns literally steal all of the nutrients and everything, all of the resources available are taken up by the thorns, and the plant simply doesn't have a chance. Can't grow. And last but not least, there's the good ground. In the good ground, the seeds go into the ground because it's nice and soft. It's moist. The seeds open, they grow, and a good-rooted tree or a good-rooted plant, whatever it is, takes shape. And one day, that tree bears fruit. None of the other grounds, none of them bear fruit. Just the good ground. Now, what does all this mean? When we talk about the path, we're talking about from a biblical perspective. We're talking about the person who hears the word but doesn't understand it. And because he doesn't understand it, it doesn't take root, and the birds that come represent the enemy. Satan swoops in and takes the seeds before they can ever take root. And the one that's in the rocky ground is like someone who hears the word and he even receives it joyfully. He receives it joyfully. But as soon as things get difficult, as soon as times get rough, as soon as there's some sort of what's the word? Diversity? No. Adversity. So as soon as there's some adversity in his life, in her life, immediately it all falls apart. The plant comes up. I'm done. No, I'm done. I can't handle this. And they quit. Now, the thorns represents a person who hears the word, but then he or she is more concerned with the cares of the world, with obtaining wealth, obtaining possessions. They're willing to do whatever they need to do for God so long as they can fit it into their career. Kind of a thing like that. They like the idea of having a relationship with God when there's time. And obviously, the good ground is the person who hears the word, embraces the word, and moves forward in it. And his life produces fruit. Her life produces fruit because of the embracing of the word. That's how I see this parable. And it's funny because I see how this directly correlates with weight loss. I see how this directly correlates with me. These statuses, the path, the thorns, the rocky ground, the good ground, they're all representations of the heart. If your heart is the path, me sitting here on this microphone throwing seeds, it's not going to take hold because the ground is too hard. Your heart is too hard. You're set in your ways, not going to change. That's the state of their heart. Now, the person that is in the rocky ground, they're the person that listens to what I have to say and maybe even applies some of what I have to say. And the minute there's no result, the minute the result is in a way they don't like, they're gone. They're gone and they want nothing to do with it. No, that didn't work for me. They're consumed by the result. They quit before anything could show itself. That's the condition of their heart in this journey. Now the thorns, they had some success. They had some success and they had enough to make them proud. And I don't mean proud like I'm proud of what I accomplished. I'm talking about like pride, like how dare you suggest anything to me? I know exactly what I'm doing. This is what I've done. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of pride I'm talking about. And if they really, if someone like me came along to tell them, listen, you're not really on a plateau here. In reality, the evidence of a plateau is a signal that things need to change. Because from the very beginning, everything works until it doesn't. Everything works until it doesn't. Portion control of food, no matter how good or bad it's perceived, works until it doesn't. Then changing that food to healthier food and tracking it and weighing and measuring it, all of that works until it doesn't. Holding on to vices that you know are hindering you will work. There will be some success until there's no longer success. And the problem with that is it gives you enough time to create some sort of success, to create some sort of confidence, to create some sort of pride that it's just enough to make you ignorant to anything that needs to happen next. and someone like me comes along and says, hey, did you ever think maybe it's time to drop sugar from your life? Did you ever think maybe, just maybe, we got to stop with the fast food every day? Maybe, just maybe, you know, less sugar in that coffee. Maybe we got to stop ordering dessert coffee in the morning, and maybe we got to start actually ordering coffee. Anybody like me who would suggest something like that offends that person. How dare you tell me? And they hold on to lies that everything is on the table. Everything is on the table. And then you have good ground. And good ground is pretty obvious. They did everything. They recognized the way. They saw it. When they had trouble, they asked for advice. They took that advice. They ran with it. They asked something else. They actually went above and beyond what was necessary of them. They were willing to make the sacrifices necessary to grow, to show real growth. They were willing and able and ready to go to do all of it. That last one, the good ground, few and far between. That's why I could say the past year of this podcast has been very, very frustrating. But that's my fault. My fault is that I have to see that I'm doing my job. As the person who throws the seeds, I'm doing my job. Now, I just laid out 4 different kinds of people here. The person with the heart, that's the path. And originally I had thought the path, the rocky ground, the thorns, the good ground, they're all different kinds of people. But it's not really that at all. Because I could easily say at any given moment over the past 6.5 years, I was every single one of these people. So maybe it's not a type of person. Maybe one person could be all of these things. Maybe it's a condition of where your heart is. And every day that you wake up, you decide which one you are. Are you the path? Are you rocky ground? Are you thorns? Are you good ground? Some days you're going to be good ground. Some days you're going to be rocky. Some days you're going to be thorns. And some days you're going to be the path. Maybe you even decide that multiple times a day. It's not just once a day. It's multiple times a day. Maybe you started the morning on good ground and then somebody brought something to work and caused some other things, right? Maybe circumstance caused you to switch, veer off. We have to be able to see it, and we have to be willing to see it. That really, this parable is not a story about a man sowing seeds. It's a mirror for you to understand the condition of your heart. So I laid it all out for you. I think I did a good job. Where would you say you are today? I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to condemn anybody. I'm here to get you to recognize where you're at. Because you're not going to go anywhere until you realize where you are. You can't decide where to go until you realize where you are. You don't know what correction to make until you realize what you're doing wrong. When I sat here and I decided to adopt macronutrients as my measuring tactics, I walked into that thinking I was living a high protein, low carbohydrate lifestyle. But I decided to test it out just to see where I'm at. How big of a change do I really need to make? Instead of a high protein, low carbohydrate lifestyle, I was eating triple the amount of carbs that I was eating protein. And I'm like, no, but that doesn't make sense. I only eat fruit. Carbs are in everything. It doesn't matter that they're what they come from. It just matters that they are a carb. So I had to make some adjustments. I had to make some sacrifices. And these conditions of your heart are either going to promote you making sacrifices, they're going to promote me making sacrifices, or they're going to slow us down. They're going to stop us. We're going to outright refuse to make sacrifices that we know are necessary to progress forward. This is why I asked, where do you think your heart is right now? Where do you think you are? Where do you sit? Where do you stand in the broad scheme of things? Even if it changes, even if it's variable, are you at the majority right now? Are you on the path? Are you the rocky ground? Are you the thorns? Or are you the good ground? Which one? If you're the good ground, maybe you're willing to make the sacrifice. But if you're the thorns, if you're the path, you got to do the hard work necessary to be willing to make the sacrifices. And the problem with those other conditions, you may no longer see that those sacrifices are necessary. And just like how this is supposed to be a biblical connection to your relationship with God, it could also be your relationship with your health and weight loss journey. Where your heart is on any particular moment of any particular day is going to dictate the actions you take and don't take. The things you're willing to do and not willing to do are all going to be dictated by the condition of your heart. So it's a legitimate question. A legitimate question. And nobody can make you change. Nobody can make you even see the picture I'm painting right now. You have to be either in the position to see it or not. And your heart has to be willing to accept what I'm saying. It's on me to learn that I'm just the seed sower. It's on you to be the right kind of ground to receive the seed I'm sowing. Nothing changes unless you change. If you are doing everything today that you did on your first day and you're wondering why things aren't working, nothing changes unless you change. It's up to you in the end. No one can make you do this. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.